are you listening to? Straight Talk with Kim and Carolyn.
Welcome to Straight Talk with Kim and Carolyn. I'm Kim.
I'm Carolyn.
Today we're going to talk about about 40 plus years of failed homeless policy. And we're going to talk about really why it doesn't work, why we have invited more homelessness, why we just have not seemed to get this right. And surprise, surprise, the federal government is right
always
in the middle
of
of it. And a bunch of do-gooders that, they go to sleep at night patting themselves on the back thinking they've done something good when really they frequently do more harm than good. And we're going to hear from somebody who has been through it and is a great example of why this doesn't work and what we really need to do to make this work better.
Right. And I was going to say, too, I just had a conversation yesterday. I was at a lunch. The discussion was not about homelessness, but it came up, and it is coming up over and over and over in policy discussions with people because we are seeing more of it in our communities throughout the entire valley, and people don't understand why. They don't understand what's changed. If they're not in the middle of the policy discussion, and sometimes even when they are completely unaware of some of the positions that our leaders have taken that have exacerbated the problem in recent years.
Okay, so first we're going to talk to an expert in the law and policy for homeless services, former representative Kim Coleman.
That is correct.
And
and I'll tell you, this came to my mind as well because I noticed that we have a number of our lawmakers attending meetings, or they have attended meetings this week on Housing First and why Housing First is the right way to go. And I'll tell you, anybody who has spent their life or adult years working in this space and cares about the betterment of humanity and the people who are receiving these homelessness services or these services are provided to the homeless, they consistently say Housing First is garbage.
Okay. So Housing First is garbage. So
every look at it, when you take a look at what the consequences are of that policy.
Okay, but let's talk about what that is. Yes. Housing First.
Yeah.
Okay,
Housing First is housing only.
It is the Housing First initiative. So let's start by acknowledging that this is a congressional piece. This is the law passed by Congress that says that any of the housing and urban development funds for homeless services, transitional services, all of that has, anytime a state or an entity or county receives these HUD funds, then this is the set of rules they have to play by. Now, it turns out that Utah's state homelessness funding, and really this is what goes down into your cities and counties, only about 20 to 25% of those funds are federal. And yet, those congressional rules from HUD they regulate 100% of our funds.
Yep.
And so this is a place where, again, the federal government tying our hands for 75% of what we spend. So when I was in the legislature, there was an audit done that revealed how absolutely, I think this was 2017, how absolutely failed these policies are. So the Housing First initiative says that it's the humane thing to do to put a roof above someone's head, no questions asked.
Correct.
We don't demand anything. We don't say you have to get clean. You have to get domestic violence counseling, that you have to get job training, that you even have to apply for a job. Housing First initiative says...
You can be running a meth house out of your house paid for by the taxpayers. Which seems to be a common activity in these homes.
So frequently. So the Housing First initiative is built around 90-day vouchers. And so there is a system of identifying who gets the vouchers when they get the vouchers. Frequently, it tends to be the people who are most on the verge of death. So if this person is on the street, they're more likely to die overnight than, say, the mom with 2 kids. And so we're going to put the person with needles hanging out of their arms, put them under a 90-day voucher. Now, we give them that voucher, and then we say, however, we don't care if you get clean. Now, we'd like you to, and we really hope you do.
And
and we're gonna have these services out there. We do have these services.
And you do know how all of the people in their lives in the past of those who were drug addicted, no one's ever said that to them before. We'd like it if you got clean.
Right. So So we're going to give you a place to live, no questions asked. Again, no job training. You don't have to show up to anything. You don't have to get clean. What happens at the end of the 90 days is the person is likely still not clean.
That's right.
Has no more job skills than they did before, has no more prospects of continuing to pay that rent. And they find themselves back on the street again.
With an eviction.
With an eviction, which makes it even harder for them to get housing in the future. Now, what happens, though, this is the insidiousness of how we do this as government in Utah, is they come in the front door and they get a new number. Fresh new number. And so we have our policymakers, including a former Salt Lake County mayor, and to some degree our current governor when he served as the head of the policymaking entity over our homeless services. So we would say on the one hand, look at how many people we put in housing. Look at how many vouchers we gave out. But we still need more money, legislature, still more money, because look at all the people who keep coming in the front door and out again and in again
back
and
in
out
again.
And what we found was all this data is lacking. Now, some of this is anecdotal. We had whistleblowers from inside of these shelters and these housing programs that said, yeah, this is the revolving door. So when the legislature conducted the audit, found out that surprisingly, Road Home and some of these services just didn't have data.
No.
weren't recording things very accurately, and so the findings in the audit were, yes, this isn't working. Recidivism is high. We are not recording accurate data for this, and yet we're pouring so much money.
And let me add that this also came out, if we're talking about the same audit, I think we are, it also came out that those who were trying to get ahead, who were not using drugs, who were working jobs, they had a harder time getting a place to sleep at the Road Home because of some of the rules there. And they also did not feel safe in the facility because it was an open drug market.
Absolute open drug market. Also,
rapes were taking place in the middle of the night. There were no rules. There were no restrictions because it was roof over your head. And the people most disadvantaged by that were the ones trying to do the right thing and clean up their lives.
So we did have a couple of years when I was serving in the legislature where Speaker Hughes really drove an initiative to clean up the criminal element of around our homeless people experiencing homelessness in our downtown area.
I can't do the leftist speak. People experiencing homelessness. It's just like women not being women.
Well,
I just can't go there.
I'm okay to say these are people who are experiencing, who are living a situation. So, and to some degree, a lot of them are seeking not to be homeless. So,
but they currently are. See, I'm telling you, the moment I first heard that term used in maybe 2015, it made me cringe. That is an effort. And people say, well, it is othering them. No, you could make a list of things that I am or categories that I fall into. That doesn't define me and it doesn't other me. But I fall into those categories. And somebody who is homeless is homeless.
Right.
So anyway, right. I just think it's a language
but when we're talking about the
manipulation.
people, I mean, when we're talking about the data on it, yeah, they're homeless people. But when we're talking about people who are really experiencing what they're experiencing right now, we sure hope that it's transitory. We hope that it's temporary.
Yes, we do.
And so we have these people. But again, frequently their circumstances are such that they're not going to choose to get clean, get counseling, get training. And so we have this revolving door. And again, Speaker Hughes drove an initiative called Operation Rio Grande that really was focused on removing the criminal element. So eliminating criminality, because in these situations, it just, especially when nobody's recording things, nobody's really paying attention to data. We have invited the world's homeless to come to our city.
Yeah.
It attracted a criminal element that would prey on people who are very, very vulnerable in a lot of cases. That worked for a while until the baton did not get passed. And so when Speaker Hughes left the legislature, I tried to take up that baton, had no idea how much resistance there would be for implementing real reform in homeless services.
There's too much money and not enough accountability.
There's so much money in this. So I'm going to put a pin in this right here and say, go read Jason Chaffetz's book, Power Grab. Read chapters 1 and 2, I think a little bit of 3, and you'll find out why there is a perverse incentive to really not clean this up.
Yeah.
So, and by the way, I say clean up. What I really mean is to alleviate and minimize the human suffering, the real, absolute grave human suffering that a lot of these people experience. And it's a loss of human potential. It's a tragic loss of dignity and of life.
And I'm sure you heard from some of those people who were impacted by the work that Speaker Hughes did down there, and the many people who did it with him as well, right? But he charged through massive walls that were put in his way to try to keep him from accomplishing what he did. And there were lives changed and people who had tremendous gratitude, because without those programs that forced, I don't want to use that word, but that allowed accountability and taught people a way to do things better and guided them in that process.
And it really was a phased program that he implemented, and this was the last phase, was change the policy. So going in, and the triage was removing the criminal element and creating trying to create better physical situations for people who are in these placements. Finally was, we've got to change the approach. And this was where really the big walls were. At the time, President Trump had appointed a homeless czar, for lack of a better word, but a director of homeless services. And he came to Utah and he looked at our model policy, or at our policy, and said, "This is model policy."
Yes, Robert Marbut.
Yes, exactly. So Dr. Marbut, and said, "This is the way that we really fix this. This is the way we really change it." And again, this was having some accountability among the people who are receiving the benefits of the services. And if we're going to give you a roof above your head, then let's, then get some counseling, get some training. And what I think is important to know about this is it used to be that way. Not very long ago. So about 10, 15 years ago, Salt Lake County alone had almost 30 different shelters, mostly run, and services, mostly run by nonprofits. And these would be very, very successful. Recidivism was very low. It really helped people move from states of homelessness, insecurity, to more permanence and more reliance on housing.
Which is what almost everybody wants.
Which is what we should have. And so I'm going to give a shout out to a couple of places right now. One is the Other Side Academy. And what the Other Side Academy has done is said, we're going to create our own sort of ecosystem of job opportunity, job training, substance abuse counseling, bringing people into their system and leaving government completely out. They don't want government to touch them at all. And
because it destroys every good thing that they do.
It does. So a candidate comes in, the academy, a student comes in, and that student, again, is given all kinds of services that they need to support them while they are making changes in their lives.
Most of those individuals are coming out of prisons and
Coming out of
jails.
prison.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it is stacked against them in a traditional setting. But the Other Side Academy has some enterprises. Notably, they have a moving service, which is
Yeah.
one of the top-rated moving services in the state.
I've used them.
And, have you?
Yes.
So they get real job training, and it's everything from loading and packing to maybe doing the accounting side, maybe doing promotional marketing side. So really there's this broad enterprise, and they have a couple of other enterprises. So they're the people that are helped through the Other Side Academy. Really, it's life-changing.
It's life-changing.
The recidivism is low versus the road home where they're in and out, in and out.
Yeah.
Another one that I think is impressive is Life Start Academy. And this is one that will typically deal with families, with a mother and children. And I might get some of these details wrong, but a couple years ago, as I was exploring what they do, they would bring a family in and they would live communally. So they learn they learn what it is to live in a community and help and pitch in and pull your weight. They cook meals together, clean the home together. And then in the second phase, the family would move to their own small apartment where they'd start to pay rent. And in the third phase, Life Start Academy would take the rent that they've accumulated and help that family purchase a home. That's a down payment. Literally, a mom and her children could go from homelessness to home ownership in a matter of a couple years versus the road home, the government heavily subsidized program, the county run homeless services where it's in and out, with the recidivism is completely flipped opposite.
Yeah.
But what happened is when Utah adopted this Housing First initiative, it said, well, we can't fund, support, or refer to Other Side Academy, who does require drug treatment, or Life Start Academy, which does require that you get job training along the way. I want to also shout out to Maverick. Maverick is a second chance company. So I try to go to Maverick when I can because they support giving these families second chances.
They carry
with jobs.
Bear Bells, my favorite protein bars.
And they also had Cinnabon that I think
yeah,
isn't there
that
anymore.
is-
But when Utah decided we are going to fully adopt the Housing First initiative, then they stopped referring, stopped supporting in ways that they could support some of these other places. So we went from about 30 highly successful homeless services organizations to the 2 remaining. And it's the Other Side Academy.
Wow.
Again, they're supported by their enterprises, so they're doing okay. I think Life Start Academy does depend on more philanthropy to provide the housing situation that they do. But we have really, really messed this up because we have. I think there is a world between give the man a fish he eats for a day, teach the man how to fish he eats for a lifetime. I think there's a world where we can give him fish for a few days until he learns to fish. I think there is a humane aspect of that. But the government answer in Utah is just keep giving him fish every day, and we don't care if he ever learns to fish.
And by the way, the numbers in line for that fish, they're going to grow. And all of you guys
And
who
it
are
invites the
working,
world to come here,
That's
too.
right. All of you guys who are working hard to pay for it, keep ponying up. And like we saw recently, this is a separate issue when the money comes out of a different pot. But government in Utah, 90 local governments had no qualms about raising taxes this year when they've made these promises and will continue funding these programs. It will be on the backs of the people to continue them and to grow them, even when the policies exacerbate the problem. So
I want to share one more story, and then we'll bring Dawn on. we went to Price. Some of the one of the legislative committees held our committee meeting in Price because Price had a really a higher rate of drug addiction, drug abuse, incarcerated
Yeah, I
people.
think this is the committee meeting where I actually presented. Don't
Maybe possibly.
on maybe was it maybe 4 years ago or so?
Probably about
It
3 or
was
4 years
it
ago.
was in Price. It was an evening.
And what I noticed were there were a bunch of people in the audience in the same red shirt.
Yep.
And they came up to
Yep.
the mic, and person after person testified that the program that they were in had turned their lives around, and that and they really had just heart-wrenching stories. Many of them had lost most of their friends through drug overdose.
Yep.
And so very tragic stories about these people and the lives they've long lost their families. But consistently they would share that this particular setting was the 5th or 6th or 7th one they've been in. They've been in and out of the government run ones that just never worked. And this is the one that got them completely moved out of homelessness and to reliable work and reliable out of that home insecurity. But they were private. These were private.
They were.
And the number one thing is, if you come to us, you're going to have to work for
That's
it.
right.
We're going to put you to work.
Kim, I presented a number of proposals for next steps for dealing with opioid addiction for the and other types of addiction for the state legislature, all that added elements of accountability. I presented that report very, very soon after left to go work for Senator Lee. I was working for the speaker at the time, and my guess is that report was never looked at again.
Well, the running thread that was consistent all through my work on homelessness and taking that baton after Speaker Hughes left is the private programs that worked, that asked you to do your part, were the ones that were the highest success rate, the lowest recidivism. And by the way, by success, every one of those men in Price, and I think it was a men's only shelter, but every one of them would credit this program for them even being alive. Alive. And so they knew how dire that, but their circumstances were. But the government one that says we don't want to ask anything because we think the humane thing is to just give you a roof above your head, no questions asked. Let's go back and talk
and allow
to 100
you to wallow in your misery, by the way.
Let's go back 5 years in the future and see how many of those are alive, how many of those people are still homeless and suffering.
That's right.
Freezing on doorsteps of our city streets. This Housing First initiative truly is a human suffering perpetuation policy.
Yes,
and
it is inhumane.
Our own governor could not get there. So our own Governor Cox, when he was lieutenant governor, would not let us change this policy, would not let us change the policy.
Tried.
We tried, and he absolutely put his foot down. I have not heard that he has changed his position on any of that. Our Salt Lake County and Salt Lake City mayors are full hook, line, and sinker on Housing First, and will really not change this policy, no matter how bad it gets in the city, in Salt Lake City. They are not inclined to alleviate this human suffering through policies that work.
That's true.
So I don't know where we are on the policy, but we have with us someone that you know.
Yeah. So Dawn Armstrong. Dawn is an advocate for youth who are dealing with various issues, including homelessness and maybe especially homelessness. and has developed an expertise in that area through her work. So, Dawn, thank you for joining us. Would you just introduce yourself briefly, and let's start talking about really, you and I have had a number of conversations over the years about the importance truly in these programs and in our expectations as fellow human beings, the importance of accountability and providing a path for people so that their lives can be more than what they are, right? When they're in the midst of this suffering and poverty, suffering, starvation, whatever, all of the difficulties that they're dealing with when they find themselves in these situations. So, Dawn, thank you for joining us.
No, of course. I'm so happy to be here and speak to something that I'm pretty passionate about. Having experienced homelessness myself as a youth from 14 to 18, I've definitely walked the walk. And although services weren't really available when I was young, I am happy to see that we are providing services to youth. I feel like young people, especially ones that have experienced just a lack of family in general, a lot of our youth our homeless youth are coming from foster families. Sadly, what some people don't realize is a child who may be in the foster care system for most of their lives, if they turn 18 September of their senior year, the state is not legally obligated to make sure that they're paid for through foster care till their graduation day in May.
Wow.
Which again sets them up for failure. Fortunately, because found a way to make that work, but I know a lot of states there's a big stigma that a lot of these foster kids will come home, and around their 18th birthday they will find all of their things in a trash bag on the porch because the foster family didn't want to have the uncomfortable conversation that they were no longer being paid for them to be a part of that family. So these kids, a lot of the kids that I work with are kids that are already coming from disadvantaged areas. Their families, some of them have been kicked out of their homes. Some of them have just bounced around from foster care to foster care home. The sad thing is not everybody's in foster care for the right reasons. So sometimes they come out of foster care having to recover from some of the wounds they experienced there. So although I can't speak to adult homelessness, I can speak to a lot of the programs, which as you guys were speaking, I was kind of surprised because in homelessness, we talk about different barriers to homelessness. There's low barrier, which is, just finding a room for a night. And then there's like a secondary step, which is kind of where I am. And this is the role and the volunteer work that I like to do with this group. And that is these kids have decided, the first barrier is, you can be on drugs, you can not be clean, but as long as you can be safe and you can keep others safe around you, you can come in, sleep for a night, you don't have your own room, that type of thing. And the VOA has been really good about providing a youth homeless shelter to get away from what was happening at the road home, because these kids were being exploited. They were becoming either drug dealers or sex trafficked. And that was very concerning to everyone. But the difference between youth, they want to survive. They want to thrive. They want a chance. They just have to be given the chance. And they have to have the safety and anonymity to be in a place where they can take a break and breathe for a second. Because oftentimes there was a study several years ago that when a youth experiences homelessness, within 24 hours, 97% have been propositioned to trade their body for basic human needs.
Wow.
That's a problem. And oftentimes when they're trying to just find a safe place to stay and they're having to harm themselves over and over in order to create some semblance of safety from the elements, it just becomes this process that wasn't working. And so the part I like to work with is the kids that have graduated. They're to a point where they've decided to get help, to get clean. Some of these kids need to finish high school. Some of them need just an opportunity. And these kids come from all gamuts. Some of them they've never even gotten their birth certificate or social security card because they've never had the stability. I mean, I know of one youth that's in the program that I work with. They just did something as simple as get him his birth certificate and his social security card. He was able to get an ID. He was able to get a job. Within several months, he had gotten his own car. He had stable employment. And then he was able to graduate into his own home. These kids want to thrive.
Yeah.
But what's a little puzzling to me is, as I listen to you guys talk about more of the adult population, is, the program that I work with is there's a lot of accountability for the young people.
You mentioned VOA.
No, VOA is they're the kind of first barrier.
Yeah, Volunteers of America.
Volunteers of America, right? So they're like the first barrier where all are welcome, and then there's I think they have a program, but the program I work with is Milestone House. It's through Salt Lake County Youth Services, but it was actually started by a Lutheran church. They had a home. It was a grassroots effort. They had a home available to them that a pastor wasn't using. So they offered it up to the county and said, hey, we'll let kids stay here. And Milestone House was born.
Nice.
And it's a beautiful program, but there is definitely an expectation that kids have to be clean. They have to be progressing. They have to finish high school if they haven't finished high school. And it's done in such a healthy way. There are 5 homes currently. There are 3 boys' homes and 2 girls' homes. And there's I believe Mena told me an 87% success rate.
Wow.
That these kids come out of it. And that's why she's able to continue to receive funding, because she's able to show the proof in the pudding. And that is getting these kids off the street. And they're expected to go to therapy. There's a therapist that meets with them. They have within each home is a mentor, or I don't want to call them a house mother, but kind of in that realm. But they're able to learn how to cook. They're learning valuable job skills. They're connecting with other resources. I mean, it's a beautiful thing, but never is there mentioned that there's no accountability to progress. The beautiful thing is that they are progressing. And I know for myself, when you come from that lifestyle, it's very hard to kind of accept yourself, and you feel thrown away by the world. You feel unwanted. And then you've got different abuses that you have to overcome and survive. And so there's an uphill climb going from experiencing homelessness and not having a family system to now doing what it takes to climb this hill and look at what success means. And when you hold people accountable to their own potential, the magic happens. Yep. Because when they're successful at the first thing that felt so big to them, because it does feel big. It does feel big to climb that hill and to feel like, how am I ever going to be normal? How am I ever going to do normal things, have normal interactions, things that you and I take for granted? I mean, I'm a parent. I worry about my kids being ready for life at 18. Have I taught them everything? I mean, these kids haven't ever had the time, effort, and consistency that our children, take for granted. And I will tell you, the most beautiful thing I experienced was having the courage to reach for something and then succeeding at it, and having that being the building block to have the courage to reach for something even bigger, and to know I can do it. And what sometimes in our well-meaning, giving hearts, we want to rob the people of their wins. We need that credit. We need that, that attaboy that we're doing a good job.
Yep.
And oftentimes I have to tell parents, and I have to tell people that want to come in and save kids from their situation. It's like, you got to step back and you got to let them have that win, because that win is what helps them have the courage to reach for something else, because they've experienced what success feels like. And that builds that confidence, that sense of self-worth. I kind of always say, this probably is pretty harsh, but I grew up harsh, so here it is. Self-esteem is kind of crap. That's how your peers view you. That's something that needs to be fed constantly by the world, where self-worth is in your hands. And once you can grab on to your gifts and you can see what you have to contribute to the world, you can feel every day doing that. But that only happens when you let the kids roll up their sleeves and get their arms dirty in their own lives. My parents, I didn't have parents. They were very unavailable, and I come from multi-generational abuse and poverty. And this again is kind of harsh, but when I got pregnant young, and my mom had kind of abandoned me, and I never knew my father, I kind of said what Abraham Lincoln said: the best thing that my mom ever did for me was nothing. Because of her, I learned to do it for myself. And that doesn't mean that I want kids out on the street doing it by themselves, because man, I lived in a very dangerous, brutal world, and I was lucky that I was the part that survived. And I'm grateful for the services that are offered, but and I've said this before, I want to write a book called Don't Cash That Check: The Price We Pay for Government Assistance. When we're robbing people of their innate worth, the cure for cancer could be sitting on a couch somewhere receiving assistance. And what we do is we trade ease and contentment for our potential, because we keep them just comfortable enough. And we act like that's charity. That's not. It's selfish. It's selfish to rob people of of their right to be and belong and achieve. And I'm telling you, these kids are amazing, and they're gonna live amazing lives. And I mean, I moved on, and I had so much courage. I became a director at a hospital. Now I do humanitarian services. I've done a million things, and I've loved them all. But my heart will always lie with the kids and their potential, showing that to them, and even having talks. I mean, sometimes I'll go volunteer, and every year we help them put in a garden and teach them how to grow their own food and things like that. And I remember one kid sitting next to me, and he didn't know that I was homeless. He didn't know that I was in the exact same place that he was, just 20 years earlier than him. And he said, sometimes I feel so lost because I can't even do the basics. I can't, like, even time management. I feel like, why is this so hard for me? And I said, well, that's because this is the first time you've ever gotten a chance to exhale, to calm down. You're like, when your life and your focus is on where you're going to sleep tonight. I mean, I was born a very introverted personality. I became an extrovert because in order for me to survive, I had to learn to make a friend and get a meal. And I could only do that through being charming and loving and kind and never making mistakes and being perfect, so I could stay with this friend as long as possible before their mom thought, where are her parents? And so just speaking with this kid and just telling him, look, like, the first thing you need to do is learn to breathe, that you're safe now, that no one's going to remove you from this place, and you have time. Use it wisely. Talk, get help, focus on everyday little things. And then the little things become small, and you're able to reach for more. And they just need mentorship. They need people that are willing to invest in them. We can throw as much money as we want, and that's what makes people feel good, is when they give money. But when you can give time that's what moves the needle in their lives.
So, can you use volunteers? Is there a way people can volunteer or donate?
There is, and we do. So I definitely don't want to take the credit. Minna Copeland is the mastermind behind this, and she's the accountability queen. I help in several other ways. I do a lot of, pretty much I sponsor the homeless youth Christmas every year. And we gather Christmas for between 19 and 30 kids. Sometimes even little tiny people that have been in the program. We do things each summer, sometimes go to graduations. So there's always opportunities to give. And when I say people give money and that feels good, we need money.
Please give money. Please give money.
Please, like that plays its role. And we need that too. We need people that can give money. We need people that can give time. We need people that can give mentorship and really, I mean, that's what's beautiful is when you see people. And I think it's really, when you were talking about more of the adult level, I think there needs to be like a differentiation. A lot of people, there's vagrancy, which is kind of a group of people that have accepted this as a lifestyle.
Yeah.
That something within their life has shifted and they want that anonymity to not have to be in a world where they don't feel like they can deal and cope. And sometimes that's through drugs or addictions. And it's very tragic, but it's really hard to get them to move. But then there's that other side. And that was what I wanted people to see in me. And that's kind of how I got involved in homelessness. As I wrote a viral blog post called Homelessness Has a Face and It's Mine. And I talk about how, we have to learn to differentiate. There are people that want out. They never chose to be homeless. They do not want to be here. They want out, but they can't do it alone. And that's our duty. That's our duty to extend the arm of friendship, love, and charity to someone that is truly wanting to change their lives. And sometimes people need coaxing. Sometimes, their circumstances have put them in situations where they've learned bad habits and trying to cope with what they've been through. But I can tell you, young mothers, that's not where they want to be. Children, they don't want to be there. I mean, it's a very shameful and humbling situation to be in. And so, a lot of grace and a lot of giving, but when you hold people accountable, you tell them that you believe in them. Yep. You believe in their ability to overcome. And I can't think of a more respectful thing than to, charity can't be about you. It can't be about, our ability to pat ourselves on the back. I want to share something, and
okay.
I hope that it's pertinent to our conversation. This is something I wrote about charity one day. It says, true charity is not transactional. True charity should not be traceable. True charity should not lead backward, but instead catapult forward. The recipient, having made the most of what's been given, finds success, has healed their wounds, and desires to share their experience, knowledge, and opportunity with the next disadvantaged. The second we trade charity for status, for votes, or for personal gain, we strip the virtue out of the gift. Charity never faileth is a fallacy. Charity never faileth is a fallacy. Charity can fail to teach the giver because it was never supposed to be about them. Charity can fail the receiver if they aren't wise with the investment and don't take personal responsibility with their own progress. It only works when both people come to the table with their heart in the right place.
That's beautiful.
Thanks.
We
Yep.
should just end.
Yeah,
right
that
on-
is going to be the end. But
Right on that.
and I think because that's the perfect wrap up, that is what this is all about. And I was thinking too, as you were talking, Dawn, that it seems to me, first of all, many of those who are adults who are really difficult to deal with and get them on a path where they're making change. My guess is that a very high percentage of them were youth in similar types of situations, whether they were homeless or not, but had things going on in their lives that were never dealt with when they were a youth that led to these other problems, including addiction, as they
They're the
grew
part that
up.
didn't survive it. They're the part of our
Yeah.
community that didn't survive it.
Yeah.
And I can tell you that it is taking people that are already hurting, and it's continuing to hurt them and
Yeah.
wondering why they can't overcome it.
Mm.
And that's the sad reality. And love is a powerful thing, and so is time, so is opportunity. And we can take some of the most, I guess, I hate to say throwaway, but that's what our society does. But there's still hope in that. There's still hope in them. I don't really like to give up on people, but at some point they have to play a role in their own
Right.
ability to succeed. Because as much as you want to, extend that arm and help people up, they have to learn to stand on their own, and that's the only thing that lasts.
Yeah.
Well, and you're that living proof of that mix of that support, help, love, charity, while also the holding you accountable, celebrating those wins, those achievements, and really, like you said, ultimately, one of the greatest human needs is to feel valued. And sometimes that 90-day voucher didn't value the person and for what
No.
their potential was. Grateful to know about the services that we have for our youth, because
Yes.
that has been highlighted the last several years in Utah, that we have had challenges with placement, with services for homeless youth. And then we do everything backwards when it comes to the
I know.
homeless adults.
Yeah.
So
This was great to hear.
The beauty in intervention, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because we take this really vulnerable group and we intervene. We stop the trajectory of what their life would have been, which in the system is where they end up when we neglect, to intervene.
Yeah.
And now, you see the results. They speak for themselves. They need time, they need mentorship, and they need accountability. And they're able to receive that. I think Menace should get 10 more homes.
So the numbers have a face. Like
That's
to Dawn's
right, we
point.
forget that, yeah.
These are the statistics, the data in an audit. They represent people in states of
and
human
their
suffering.
Yes.
So we've got to get this right. But as
Yeah.
of 2 years ago, we did not
weren't
have a
willing
lot
to.
of legislative support or governor support for making these big changes.
So, Dawn, would you point us toward the where people can go online to either sign up to volunteer, to find out more about the program that you work with, to make a donation, whatever?
So Milestone House is definitely through Salt Lake County Youth Services. And I know they're always looking for donors. They're always looking for people to give to their program.
Okay.
That's how they keep their funding. That's how they keep those kids safe in those homes and able to grow, progress, and graduate that program. There's a lot of wonderful kids there that have done some beautiful things, and a lot of really incredible people at the helm of that. And I think that if they need guidance and help on how to attack adult homelessness, there's a program that's modeled beautifully. So I couldn't be more proud of Minna and what she does for those kids, and I'm grateful to be a part of it. I'm grateful to spend time in all the youth homeless organizations that I volunteer in. It's a labor of love, and I believe in it, and I believe in people's ability to overcome. I think that's the most valuable form of respect, is honoring people's potential.
I love that. It puts things in a different light, I think, than those who would say that just keep pouring money into the problem without doing anything that helps people better themselves in their lives. That, honoring their potential is how we show them respect and love.
Like, you can't do this for yourself.
That's
Someone
right.
else do it.
That's right.
And that's not respect.
No,
And
it's,
charity.
yep,
It's,
yep.
it's-
And it elevates us at the expense of them, which
Right.
is not love either.
and that's the part that feels incongruent with the message,
Yes.
you know?
Yep.
So, yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for sharing with us the work that you're doing, your experiences that have helped to kind of color your work and give context to it. We appreciate you coming on and what you're doing for our community. Thanks, Dawn.
Absolutely. Happy to be here. Thank you for having me. And thank you for drawing attention to these people and their suffering.
Yes, thank you.
It truly is a growing problem in Salt Lake.
Yeah.
And a spilling over
Everyone's
throughout
noticing
the county.
And I'll tell you, to the point that Dawn made, I remember years ago, my mom telling me when I was growing up, I was living at home. I grew up in New York, and she was at a work dinner for my father with a bunch of liberals, I think. And there was the discussion at the time of welfare reform. And this was pre-Clinton. And my mom made a comment about it. And I remember her telling me the response and reaction of the woman next to her, which is exactly what Dawn said. She leaned over, patted my mom on the hand and said, "Oh, honey, you don't expect them to be able to do what we do you?" So no, this isn't love.
Okay, so I need to have one big disclaimer right here. Is my experience was pre-2020, and since then, the governor has appointed a new Utah homeless director.
Director,
No,
yes.
we still like to call him the homeless
correct.
czar.
Yes.
So there probably is some update. We should probably have. This is
Former-
Wayne Niederhauser,
yes.
former Senate
president.
president, has taken this on. So I think that when he started, he was a little bit maybe on one side, but I think his eyes have been a little bit open on
I would
the
love to
problems
have
with
this
housing first. So I
conversation
think we
with
need
him.
to have him on,
Yeah.
get some updates, see where things are going. But definitely, we've spent 40 years just doing the wrong thing.
Yeah.
That really has just perpetuated human
Yeah.
suffering. So
Well, and Wayne is somebody who will really look at all the options and study the best path for the right outcome. I have faith in him in that way. And
So-
I've actually chatted with him at the beginning, and at the very beginning, and there was a lot to take in. I think I'd love to see how he sees
definitely.
things.
So we'll have him on and maybe get more of an update, but just to kind of lay the groundwork for why this is such a challenging thing. Once again, federal government right in the middle.
Yep.
And the state of Utah saying, okay, well, for the 25% we can
Yeah.
get from you, we're willing to have our hands tied on the other 75%,
Yeah.
which is a failed program. And so, once again, we're in that policy arena trying to push the things that work and
Yes.
eliminate the things that
Always.
don't. Let's thank Fosmu, our
Thank you,
fantastic
Fosmu.
producer.
You're welcome.
And thanks for joining us again. Find us where you find your favorite podcasts, and please give us a like and a share and a follow on all of those sites and in social media, and let your friends know about us, because here's where
Tell
you
your
get some-
friends. Tell your family.
friends. All righty, we'll see you next time.